Welcome to our first webinar. I'm Kitty and this is Thulasi. I'll do a little bit of an introduction and then I'll pass over to the wonderful Thulasi to take us through the topic today. So I am the head of client development and marketing at Aspire. And so I thought it would be a really lovely thing to start putting webinars on semi-regularly. So this is the first one and you can expect more from us in the future. If you don't know us already, we are Aspire Leadership. We're a soft skills training company. We do in-house courses as well as public courses, everything from strategic planning to presentation skills to leadership, including a women in management course, which we're going to draw from today during the webinar. Basically, what we're passionate about is helping people communicate with each other in the workplace and essentially making everybody's lives, work lives especially, a little bit easier and nicer, and to be in an environment where we can all kind of, for the most part, just get along in the interest of kind of helping as many people as possible. We wanted to do more things like webinars that are free and easily accessible. And so that is why we have started these webinars. I am going to hand over to the wonderful Thulasi now. Thulasi is one of our trainers. She specializes in management training and leadership training courses, including the Women in Management course. Thulasi is a business psychologist and an executive coach and a psychotherapist. And in her executive coaching talks a lot about bridging this confidence competence gap that we're going to talk about a lot today. So she is super, super qualified, and I'm going to hand you over to her very, very capable hands now.
Thank you, Kitty. Thank you so much. That's lovely. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So pleased to kind of be here with you. So as I said, we're going to be talking today about imposter syndrome and how we bridge that gap between confidence and competence. And really just to start off with, I'd like to start with a bit of a personal story initially. Many, many moons ago, so actually my background is in healthcare in the NHS and in working in adult mental health services as a psychotherapist, manager, leader. And many moons ago, one of the best managers that I've ever had the privilege of working for was actually moving from that role into another one. And we were having our last one-to-one meeting. And I had never really asked for feedback. And to be honest, in most of my career, feedback culture has not really been a thing, either receiving feedback or providing feedback. But I did ask for feedback on this occasion. I asked my manager for just his thoughts on me personally, professionally. And he said a lot of really lovely positive feedback and some really interesting ideas for me to reflect on and take away in terms of my professional growth. But the one thing that has always stood with me is that he said to me, Thulasi, your competence is up here and your confidence is over here. And he did that visually with his hands. And then he stayed silent like that and just let it sink in. And I was really struck by that. And clearly I am, because it's, you know, over a decade later, I'm here talking to you all about it because it stayed with me. And usually in most of my trainings, it's the one story that I share from my background. But when he did that, something really kind of landed for me. It was the first time I really took stock of the impression and the impact that I made, which was over here, versus how I felt about myself, which was over here. And Kitty, if we would be able to share the slide, that first slide with the image. This little animation really kind of strikes a chord with me, where it really helped me kind of see that my feelings of not being good enough or being inadequate weren't necessarily what was being reflected in reality. And I think that's what this depicts here, about that gap between how we see ourselves and how we feel about ourselves versus the actual reality in terms of our ability. If you could go on to the next slide, please. So today we're going to talk about three things. I'm going to take you through, firstly, I'm talking a bit more about imposter syndrome symptoms and understanding how it creates that gap between our competence and our felt sense of confidence. Next, we're going to look at what's called this concept, really interesting concept around authenticity paradox. I'm going to share some research by Herminia Ibarra, and it's a really powerful research that helps us understand a bit more about what's going on, but how to move out and navigate out of that competence confidence gap. And then finally, we'll get into talking about some practical techniques, 3 practical techniques that you can implement immediately to start bridging competence and confidence gap for you personally. So what this means is you walk away with the ability to recognize when it's holding you back, the imposter syndrome, but more importantly, some practical tools to help you actually feel as confident as you are competent. So could we go on to the next slide, please? So as I was showing you this gap, imposter syndrome, it's that ongoing persistent feeling that we're not as competent as other people perceive us to be, despite evidence of our capabilities. It's that nagging voice in our head that says to us, you're just lucky, you fool people into thinking you're much more capable than you are. And this is what creates that gap for us. It's the disconnect between what we actually do and what we believe we can do. And it matters because the impact of this, and we're talking about in our professional lives here, particularly because it leads to self-sabotaging behaviors, such as we might not speak up in meetings, we might constantly be doubting ourselves, second-guessing ourselves, we may not apply for that promotion, we might over-prepare, spend hours trying to get something just right or be really perfect, which actually slows us down and essentially makes us less impactful than we want to be. Can you go on to the next slide, please? Some common symptoms around this, and how do we know we're experiencing this? And these are some of the common things we often hear from people. And as we're going through this, I'd like to ask you, just pop in the chat for me. Again, I'd love to know how this is resonating with you. Just pop in the chat which of these you feel resonates with you the most. So things like we have a tendency to attribute our success to external factors. So as I was saying, it was just lucky, nothing to do with me, just sheer luck. I was in the right place at the right time. Or actually, it was everyone else helping me, nothing to do with me. There might even be a sense of feeling like a fraud. Eventually I'm going to be found out. Emily, thank you. All of the above. Tick, tick, tick. Yes, thank you. I know what you mean. Setting excessively high standards. So this sense of we can be so perfectionistic and so demanding of ourselves that we set such unrealistic expectations of ourselves that we end up feeling like a failure when it feels like we don't meet them perfectly. We might even downplay our expertise. We might dismiss positive feedback from others. Sometimes we might even overwork and even avoid new challenges or opportunities. And Leah, you said all of them, but especially the fear about others. Yes, thank you. Okay. And over preparing. Yes, I know. Still do that. Ask Kitty how I prepared for this webinar. So yeah, it's still, all of these symptoms are really common to us. I might just share a couple of quotes quickly. Could we go to, I think it's the next slide, Kitty. Oh, I'll go into this one first. Yeah. This is really interesting. There's been so much research that's been done around imposter syndrome over the years, and some of the data kind of varies, but it generally suggests that we're estimating anything around 40 to 82% of professionals can experience these type of feelings at some point in their career. And in the research, they found that it's quite common amongst people who tend to be really high achievers, or in environments, interestingly, where you might be a minority in all kinds of sense. So you might be from a minoritized group, gender, racially, ethnically, disability, or you might be trying to pioneer something in your field. In other words, trying to do something different to the norm, where you're trying to break through or trailblaze. And that can also be a type of environment which can give rise to feelings of imposter syndrome. I think the quotes are the next slide. Yes. So it's something, again, it's so common, and even really well accomplished women in the field will talk about this. So Sigourney Weaver said, have I ever doubted myself? Have I ever not? I feel self-doubt whether I'm doing something hard or easy. Next slide, please, Kitty. This is Samantha Bee from The Daily Show, who talks about, that sense of, I think I thought they were going to figure it out. Like, why would they hire me? And what are they going to do when they figure out I shouldn't be here? And then she's attributed that to luck. Well, they never figured it out. So I guess I got pretty lucky. Nothing to do with me. It's all external. And just the next slide as well, please, Kitty. And this is Joyce Roach. She's a former CEO of an amazing organization called Girls Incorporated. And she talks about how, for her being a woman of color in business at the time when she started in her career, was very, very challenging, and she had to learn by trial and error. And she talks about the side of perfectionism, where she would wait until she had something just right to say in the perfect way before she spoke up in meetings. So this happens to everyone, and even those who are really well accomplished. I'm going to share with you, if you grab your cameras, because we're going to do a quick snap poll, grab your phone cameras, or you can use, you can do this. If you've used Slido before, you can go to slido.com, just punch in this hashtag followed by the numbers, or you can grab your phone camera and point it at the QR code. Here you go, lovely. And just join this poll. Let's just do a little snap poll to see where we are. Which of these statements about authenticity most resonate with you? And it might be through your leadership experience, your management experience, or your professional experience. I'm going to invite you, just choose your top three. There might be an element of, oh, it's all of them, but I'm going to invite you to just choose your top three at the moment. And let's see what how we're feeling about this around authenticity. That's really interesting. So the top two answers at the moment, being told to just be myself, but finding it doesn't account for the complexities I face. Yeah. And also the definition of my authentic self has evolved through my leadership journey. Lovely. Thank you, everyone. We'll want to hold those in mind. And as we do this, what we're coming into now is talking a bit about what's called the authenticity paradox. If I just stop my slide share there, Kitty, would you be able to share the slide on the authenticity paradox? Thank you. That's perfect. So this is a research by Herminia Ibarra, and a lovely quote from her: being authentic does not mean being a strict replica of the person you were yesterday. And I'll tell you a little bit more about her research. She's challenging here the conventional wisdom that authentic leadership means just be yourself. And over a period of about 15 to 20 years, she conducted research with INSEAD and Harvard Business School with hundreds of professionals who were in transition. And what she means by that, by transition, she means, and she also looked at professionals, managers, leaders at different levels as well. So it's a really broad sample she was looking at. And by transition, what she means is she was looking at mid to senior level executives who were going through career transitions, professionals going through career transition, leaders who are taking on more new or expanded responsibilities. She was looking at people who were coming into leadership development programs. She also looked at managers from different cultural and organizational backgrounds as well. And what she found was that this idea of strictly adhering to just being yourself, your authentic self, could actually prevent growth. She found that when we face new challenges, sticking only to behaviors that feel natural and comfortable for us can limit our effectiveness. And she shows us a slightly different way of looking at this. Could we go on to the next slide, please, Katie? she calls this the growth-based authenticity cycle. And this is what she found from her research as she was interviewing, talking to all these hundreds of professionals, also doing case studies, following them and tracking them over a period of years. What she was finding was that when professionals, managers, leaders were in transition, when they were going through change, any kind of change, it often felt fake to them when they were adopting new behaviors that were necessary for their roles. And for any of us with in our working lives, we will know that. We will know when we've had to try something new, do something different, maybe they even go through a organizational change or restructure, and we've had to adopt and adapt. We'll understand what that means about that sense of adapting new behaviors that sometimes feel uncomfortable or unnatural to us. But through her interviews and talking with all these people, she said that she found the inauthenticity created anxiety, it reduced their effectiveness, but it was a necessary step. It was a necessary step to go through that discomfort in the initial stage and feel that anxiety and maybe initially feel that you were not effective to get to a place of growth and effectiveness. And she found that many people, especially women, would also interpret this discomfort as evidence that they didn't belong in their new roles. But when they actually went ahead and kept experimenting over time, kept going, experimenting with these different approaches, they were able to develop more versatile leadership styles and more versatile behavioral repertoires, behavioral skills. The most successful leaders, she found, defined authenticity as being consistent with their evolving future self, not something that was limited to or stuck with their past identity. It was evolving, it was an evolving identity. So in this cycle, when we face a new challenge, we're experimenting, we are leaning into and embracing the discomfort. And it's through that phase, it leads to learning opportunities and growth. And it's through that phase, it leads to what she calls integration, where we start to feel more comfortable in ourselves. So for many authentic behaviors we have now, at some time for us, it would have been new and uncomfortable. So certainly I can share for myself that, so part of my background, as Kitty was saying, is I'm a psychotherapist, but also even in my management leadership roles, I was not always comfortable sharing my, I guess, vulnerabilities or my failures. As I've moved and transitioned more into the organizational training and coaching space, I become more comfortable narrating stories, telling stories, sharing stories about my experience. But at various points, it was a real place of discomfort for me. And it's something I've learned to lean into. Another example for me is I was sharing with Kitty where when I used to write emails, I used to apologize excessively. Oh, I'm so sorry I'm late. It's been really busy. I've meant to reply to you. And this kind of constant perpetuating apologizing and also correcting myself, where I would look over an email and try to make sure that it was written in a really warm and nurturing and kind way. And I've learned to adopt that and adapt that by I don't apologize in emails anymore. And I am still very warm and sincere, but I don't spend time kind of overly correcting and looking at the tone of my email as well. So these are small behaviors that we can work and chip away at to create more of that authentic sense of self. What we'll do now is let's talk about the how. So how do we do that? How do we get into that? And if we can go onto the slide for the strategies. Thank you. Lovely. So 3 practical strategies. I'm just going to give you a quick overview that you can use to bridge your competence gap whilst navigating that authenticity paradox. Techniques are evidence-based. What that means is there's a lot of scientific research behind it to show that it works for many people. And it helps really address some of the psychological and practical aspects of imposter syndrome. So the three strategies I'm going to give you a quick talk about are, the first one is called evidence collection, keeping a wins journal. Second one is being able to reframe our thoughts about imposter syndrome. And the last one is about recognizing and owning our strength. So the first technique, evidence collection technique, we can go on to the next slide. Thank you. This is a lovely example here. So the evidence collection technique, basically what we're dealing with here with our human brain is we have a negativity bias. What that means is we are prone to filtering out positive evidence of our capabilities. It means that we have to deliberately and intentionally focus on positive evidence in order to address that imbalance that we are naturally wired to have. This idea of keeping a wins journal, here's an example where we document our successes, positive feedback, and challenges. An example here, we led the quarterly planning session that received positive feedback. What was the evidence? The VP commented that my strategic thinking helped clarify priorities. What were the skills? Leadership, strategic planning, facilitation. And this is really important as well. So recognizing how you might have felt at the time, initially nervous, but actually here, also acknowledging that I prepared well and ideas were valued. Another example of this, just go to the next example. Thank you. Where someone talked about mentoring a junior colleague through a challenging project, and they completed the project ahead of schedule with minimal supervision. That was the evidence for them. And recognizing their skills in coaching, sharing their knowledge transfer, their empathy, and also just recognition that realizing that they know more than they give themselves credit for. So this is a lovely way in which we can start to readdress that imbalance that we tend to have in our mind that can also kind of lead to the imposter syndrome just being perpetuated. It's not about ego stroking. I really do want to make that point. It's not about that at all. It's about creating an accurate record, as I said, that counters our brain's natural tendency to dismiss achievement. Let's go on to the second strategy. Next slide, please. Thank you. Reframing thoughts around imposter syndrome. So this strategy involves recognizing and challenging some of the unhelpful thinking patterns, again, that can fuel the imposter syndrome. So if I go to the first example on the slide, please, thank you. The thought might be, I was just lucky to get this promotion. So we have that tendency to attribute our achievement to something external, not anything to do with me. And reframing it here, really recognizing what's my role, what's my contribution here. My consistent performance, my problem-solving skills are what earned me this opportunity. If you can go on to the next example, please. Thank you. Look, I don't have enough experience to lead this project. So I was recently coaching a client who's in the exec role, and he shared with me that at only 34 years, he is the youngest, probably one of the youngest people in his industry to be in that role. Practically everyone in that type of role across his industry are on average about 15 years older. And this is the kind of thought that he was sharing with me. I don't have enough experience to be in this role. And reframing it, well, you've got where you have. What does that mean? What's a different way of looking at this? Well, actually, I do bring a fresh perspective. I've been valued. I've brought something different into the organization, or contribution of impact, which is why I've been brought into this role. And I can also learn anything I need along the way. And the last example, everyone else seems to know what they're doing except me. This is an interesting one because a lot of us have this as well. The reframe thought here is everyone has knowledge gaps. I can bring some unique strengths and also collaborate to fill in what I don't know. And my challenge here is also, you know what everyone else is thinking? How do you know that everyone else seems to know what they're doing except you? So this is a lovely technique that we can use to start to challenge some of our own thinking that might be getting in the way. Really important to say this is not about positive thinking. It's not about that. It's about addressing the balance. It's the accurate thinking that reflects a reality rather than our fears. And if you go into the next slide, please. Thank you. And this third strategy is what we call at Aspire, blowing your own trumpet. A really powerful exercise for recognizing and owning your achievements. And it's got a few different elements to it. Firstly, identifying what's a specific achievement you're proud of, articulating that, exactly what you did, what your contribution was to make it successful. And finally, practice sharing that in a very clear and confident way without minimization. What I mean by that is when we do this exercise in our Women in Management course, we intentionally say to our delegates, participants, when you're saying this, don't you try to refrain from using words like just, sometimes, notice your body language. It's a very experiential exercise to really practice speaking about our achievements, our passions, our successes, our expertise without minimizing that. So as I say that, my challenge to you all, as you're listening, is I would like you to take one of these sentences and pop for me in the chat. Just complete one of these sentences for me. What are you pleased with? Tell us about what interests you, the thing you enjoyed the most. You love it when, what's your passion? What are you an expert in? What are you known for? Let's hear from you. So, and as you're doing that, I will share with you a wonderful win that me and a colleague had at Aspire recently on a couple of different levels. We were working with a client, a new client coming into Aspire for some bespoke senior leadership training. And we had some lovely feedback from them that they really felt we understood what they were needing. And not only understood that, but within, I think almost on the spot, we could tell they wanted to work with us. And we won that client, which was an absolute achievement for us both, because we love partnering together. And yes, we definitely blew our own trumpet on that. Emma, thank you. My recent move to a new company was a success. I passed my probationary period a month early and I've settled in really well. Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Emma, for sharing that. That's brilliant. Congratulations. Wonderful. I'd love to hear from more of you. As we do, please do like pop it in the chat. But as we do, also have a think, those three strategies that we've gone through, which one of those might feel most challenging for you? For me, when I was going through my career transition, it was blowing my own trumpet. It's something that I have had to lean into the discomfort and practice deliberately a lot more. So this is the one I've been working on a lot more. Could we go to the next slide, please, Kitty? Kelly, my passion is mentorship inside and outside of work. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, this is nice. I just want to share with you some quotes. Cheryl Strayed, who wrote Wild, which was then turned into the film by Reese Witherspoon, talks about her self-doubt, and that was always a struggle. And she said that by the time she wrote Wild, she was familiar with the feeling of doubt and self-loathing. So she just thought, okay, this is how it feels to write a book. Just a real acknowledgement for her that she became comfortable in the discomfort. And this one by Justice Sonia Sotomayor. I'm not a classic imposter syndrome person because I have that initial security, but I'm capable of stepping outside of it and proving to myself it's wrong. So again, you know, even very accomplished professional women will still talk about, I can still feel it. And at the same time, I'm able to separate it. It doesn't have to define who I am as a person, and it doesn't have to inhibit me. Go to the next slide, please, Kitty. So as we wrap up today, just want to remind you of three things: the competence confidence gap. It is so common, and in the same breath, it's conquerable. Authenticity grows through experimentation, not limitation, and strength recognition is the bridge to confidence. Okay, so just have a think and feel free to pop in the chat. What are your key takeaways from here? And if we can stop the slide share there for the moment, Kitty, thank you. I'll just leave you with some of my closing thoughts. Coming back to the story that I shared at the beginning, my manager showing me the difference between my competence and my confidence. That didn't close overnight. It was work in progress. It was chipping away over a period of time, and it closed gradually and through some of these very practices that we've been discussing today. And I'd say one of the most powerful things I've learned is confidence isn't something you either have or you don't. It's dynamic. It's something we build through deliberate practice. It it takes changing how we think about ourselves and our abilities. So, I invite you just take one of the techniques from today, try it out for a week, at least see what happens, see how it starts to close the gap even slightly. And remember, the goal isn't that we're trying to eliminate imposter feelings entirely. You'd have seen that from some of the quotes. Even the most accomplished professionals have them. Our goal here is really to recognize them for what they are. It's a natural part of growth. It's not evidence that we're not capable or we don't belong. So I leave you with that. Thank you all so much. I hope these tools and this talk has been really helpful for you and just really helps your development and growth.
Thank you so much, Thulasi. That was so brilliant and insightful and useful. I'm seeing lots of lovely things coming through in the chat, so thank you also for being so involved and joining in with us. And on that note, I'm just going to put my email address and Thulasi's email address in the chat as well, so that you can get in touch with us. And if any questions come up after this that you want to ask us and you didn't think of at the time, then you can also just pop us an email. Thank you all so much, and have a lovely rest of your day. And thank you for coming.